I start with these words by Reverend Jennifer Henry, who is an executive minister with the United Church of Canada. Loved into being by the Creator, creatures revealing beauty divine, precious your textures, exquisite your colors, diverse beyond measure, bold your design. Christ interrupting all our injustice, bold love disrupting failures to care, seeking our witness, equity flowering, daring within us redress and repair. Spirit unfolding, forging connections, deep and belonging, each finding their place, risking inclusion, mutually transforming, beloved perfusion, abundance in grace. Torn and divided, forgetting your promise, needing reminding just whose we are. Rethread your vision, restore our fabric, weaver Christ risen, mending us all. Reverend Henry wrote these words as a response to the current political and corporate climate of vilifying efforts related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is happening not just south of the border, but in circles here in Canada as well. As she says, not only are diversity, equity, and inclusion hard-won words, values, aspirations, strategies, and commitments, they strike me as core to the dream of God, the very essence of God's revelation. Indeed, I believe that the dream of a reconciled humanity living with respect in creation is the new thing that the prophet Isaiah announces. Do not remember the former things or consider the things of old, God says. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do not perceive it. I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild animals will honor me, for I give water in the wilderness to give drink to my people, the people who I formed for myself, so that they might declare my praise. Spirit unfolding, forging connections, deep and belonging, each finding their place, risking inclusion, mutually transforming, beloved perfusion, abundant in grace. If we believe that's God's dream for us, a reconciled humanity living with respect in creation, it is hard to not be undone by this current moment of backsliding, of backtracking on basic rights and equal opportunities for women, for people of color, for members of the LGBTQ communities. A leading voice in this backtracking, Elon Musk, recently went on the Joe Rogan Experience, a podcast that reaches tens of millions of people, and made a startling, if not entirely surprising, proclamation. Empathy, he said. Empathy is the fundamental weakness of Western civilization. It's the bug in the software, he said. Empathy. The ability to understand and share the feelings of another is the root of what Musk and others call the woke mind virus, and he believes, destructive to society, at least his understanding of society, where he also believes, quote, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, end quote. Undeniably, there are competing visions of what our society should look like playing out right now, competing visions of what it means to be a human and how we should relate to each other. Given all the political upheaval and economic uncertainty right now, it might feel like this is an unprecedented moment. And it's true that there are factors like the influence of technology that are unique to our time. But the underlying dynamic of competing visions is well trodden. Different understandings of what it means to be human and how we should relate to each other is not a new thing. In our epistle reading today, we see something similar playing out within the Christian community in Colossae, an ancient city in modern-day Turkey. While scholars debate whether St. Paul wrote it himself or it was penned by a later disciple, the letter to the Colossians describes competing visions between Paul's teachings and what the writer refers to as philosophy according to elemental principles, a term that has led the New Testament scholar Norman DeWitt to conclude that the early Christians in Colossae were under the influence of a type of Epicurean philosophy of the time that preached a strict materialism. This was a utilitarian form of hedonism that saw pleasure as the sole intrinsic goal of the human life. This vision of humanity that sees people simply as pleasure-seeking, pain-avoiding creatures, where there's nothing beyond what can be seen or touched, where there's nothing more than what we can accumulate or consume. This materialistic vision of the world was deeply at odds with the sacrificial worldview of the early church that put Christ crucified and risen at the center of all things. Therefore, holy and beloved, the writer of Colossians says, if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above where Christ is. Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other. Above all, the letter says, clothe yourself with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony, and let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, for which indeed you are called into one body. Bear one another, forgive one another, clothe yourselves in love. Seek that perfect harmony as Christ's own body in the world. This is a fundamentally different worldview from that of the materialistic philosophers. It is an entirely different way of relating to each other than the Elon Musks of the world, who say that empathy is the bug in the software of society. Torn and divided, forgetting your promise, needing reminding just whose we are. Rethread your vision, restore our fabric, weaver Christ risen, mending us all. In the letter to the Colossians, the notion of clothing ourselves in a love that mends and restores is a reference to the early church's baptismal liturgy. Unlike today, where the sacrament is generally instituted with a sprinkling of water on the head, for the ancient church, it was a more embodied experience. After a time of preparation, the candidate would symbolically take off their old life by literally taking off their old clothes and enter the waters of baptism naked. And after being immersed and anointed, they would be then clothed in a new robe. The old ways no longer remembered. The baptized Christian puts on the love of Christ and becomes the new thing that God is doing in the world. Even though the actions may be different now, the intention is the same. Baptism is the moment we bind ourselves unto Jesus, descending into death with him on the cross and rising with him on the third day. It's the same for a first century farmer in Colossae or a 21st century infant in Toronto. The individual thread of our lives becomes woven into a beautiful tapestry. Through baptism, we bind our lives to fellow Christians around the world and in all times and in all places. And just as Christ sacrificed himself for the sake of the world, we too are called into a sacrificial life of love and service. We too are called to make real God's dream of a reconciled humanity living with respect in creation. Christ interrupting all our injustice, bold love disrupting failures to care, seeking our witness, equity flowering, daring within us our redress and repair. Within this worldview of relatedness, empathy is not a weakness or a failure. Empathy is not the bug in the software. It's our superpower. Empathy is our superpower. The ability to understand and share the feelings of another is the greatest power we have to redress and repair the problems we face. It's our greatest strength against the death-dealing forces of hatred and intolerance and racism and homophobia and anything else that tears at the fabric of our humanity. But here's the rub. Empathy doesn't just happen. Empathy requires proximity. Empathy requires proximity. We need to be near each other. We need to bear each other. Sometimes that may mean bumping into each other and finding ways to forgive each other. We need to be close enough to be curious about each other and find out what makes each other laugh and what makes us cry, what causes us pain and what brings us pleasure. We need to understand how we are different while also being open to see just how much we have in common. Liberals and conservatives, women, men, and non-binary, settlers, newcomers and indigenous, gay, straight, bi, and trans, Christians, Jews, Muslims, when we are in proximity to each other, we will be amazed. We will be amazed at just how much we have in common with each other. We all want to be loved, don't we? We all want to be loved. And we all want to be valued and included and feel like we have a place at the table. Sometimes we all need to be reminded that we are all beloved children of the living God who is always creating something new within us and amongst us. Loved into being by the Creator, creatures revealing beauty divine. Precious your textures, exquisite your colors, diverse beyond measure, bold your design. The United Church of Canada is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, and activities are now ramping up towards June 10th, 2025, when we will mark our centenary both here locally and nationally as a denomination. A few weeks ago, I got an email from the Shining Waters Regional Council letting congregations know that the church is running a campaign called 100 Tables. In a nutshell, the United Church is encouraging congregations across the country, they hope 100 or more, to place a table outside somewhere on their property that will be used to express each community's unique incarnation of Jesus' table fellowship and his practice of welcoming all saints and sinners alike. The United Church of Canada recognizes two sacraments, baptism and communion, and we are invited to use the symbol and gathering place of communion, the table, to come together in fellowship with our neighbors and have conversations about God's love and our understanding of what it means to be a Christian today, what it might mean to be a human today in these days of disruption and division. In families and as communities, the table is where we gather. It's where we eat together and where we encounter each other, our differences and our similarities. It is where, with open hearts, proximity leads to empathy, that superpower we have to understand and share the feelings of others. Indeed, at the open table of Jesus Christ, where everyone is welcome, we can participate in making manifest God's dream of a reconciled humanity living with respect in creation. This is a good thing. It's a very good thing that the National Church is doing, and so we've thought about it amongst the staff here and with the official board, and we're going to participate in this effort. And given Met's history within the denomination and our responsibility to demonstrate leadership, we're not just going to pick up a Canadian Tire picnic table and plop it out front. To mark 100 years of the United Church of Canada, we are going to build a 100-foot table. We're going to build a 100-foot table and put it right down the front walkway outside. And in case you are wondering, yes, we did check with the police and the fire department, and both are enthusiastically behind this idea. They want our outside space to be used more by the community for good purposes. This project is the brainchild of our property manager, Frank, and he has all the plans put together, and I know that he will be reaching out for volunteer help in the coming weeks. I nominate Muriel as the supervisor. The United Church of Canada is far from a perfect institution, but I believe it offers something important and necessary in this current moment with so much division and disruption and competing worldviews about how we should relate to each other. Today, our congregation was invited to wear something of their own cultural heritage. I am wearing this old piece of fabric from Ukraine. It's actually a tablecloth, and it was my Baba's, who was a very special person in my life, who loved bringing people together around her table, who taught me that it matters how we treat each other, and the most important religion is kindness. Every time we gather as the church, we gather as a united church that publicly, intentionally, and explicitly makes space for each of us, and all of us as we are, with our different cultural backgrounds, our differing financial circumstances, our specific joys and pains and perspectives and political views. Every time we gather as a church of Jesus Christ, and we look to his table fellowship as the model of how we should live our lives, where we all have a place, where proximity brings empathy, where our diversity is valued and necessary to weave a beautiful tapestry of humanity loved into being by the creators, creatures revealing beauty divine, precious your textures, exquisite your colors, diverse beyond measure, bold your design. Take heart, my friends. Even in difficult days, take heart and know that you are loved. Know that you are loved, and as you move through your week, as the writer of Colossians counsels, clothe yourself with the love of Christ. For through kindness, compassion, empathy, humility, you are the dream made manifest. You are the new thing that God is doing in the world. And may it always, always be so. Amen.